G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video on rebate boat tail bullets. The basic overview on rebate boat tail bullets. I have in front some big bullets. These are all 50 BMG bullets. They're big because they are easier to see. The conversation goes the same for the majority of them, but this is just some examples so you can see the shape of what we're talking about. Here's some normal, moderately normal, of 50 BMG bullets. Only one of them is a lead core bullet. They're monolithic, and the conversation is about the shape of it. I'll try and define whether we're talking about whether it's the lead core bullet, which does have some real reference to a boat tail bullet, to a rebated boat tail bullet, but I'll try and keep the conversation making sense. And over this side here is some various forms of some rebate boat tails. Now some of these couple here at least, are not actual bullets. I've made them look like this. I've taken some my bullet stock of different test bullets and things I've done over the years and actually put a rebate on them so you can see them. And there's some that are bullets that actually are designed like this. Anyway, the rebate boat tail. What we're talking about is, as you can see over here, where you have a step down at the back for your boat tail. It still is a boat tail we're talking about, so it actually has the shape of the tapering back in to a smaller butt to the bullet. But there's a rebate, there's a step down. And there's there's probably three fundamental reasons for it. In some places, it's done in a lead core bullet. It was done because it was a little bit easier to get a more consistent finish in the actual swaging processes. In some places, just a little bit easier, more consistent. And that may even be where it started from, as they were doing it this way and they saw some advantages in some forms. But the main reason it's done is for two reasons. One is it's about reducing the drag in an overall length of a projectile. Your overall length of the projectile is largely what sets how fast you're going to spin them, what barrels they can run, and all that sort of stuff. So your overall length is important. You don't want lighter for your overall length. You want to carry the right weight for your overall length as well. So that's important in the way of weight is energy. Although weight in a projectile makes it harder to get them going faster, it also makes it harder for the air to slow it down faster. So weight gives you largely a better ballistic coefficient, and then there's the shape. The other bit of the better ballistic coefficient is less drag. Now, if we look at a normal bullet, this is a Hornady A-tip. The drag is created by a couple of things. One is how pointy it is, how smooth those sides are, how it actually takes that air that it was going through, pushes it out over the bullet, then how it drags down to the side, and then how it closes in around the back of it. If you have a really big fat tail, there's a low pressure area behind the bullet or the projectile that is being dragged along. So the more you can close that size down, so make the air suck back down to a smaller butt, means that you are then dragging less air, which means your bullet goes through the air easier. But there's another thing going on with the bullet, and that is you have to drive it. So you have to push it from the back here. So if you have it pointy on the back here, you've got some other issues going on, which is a little bit down the boat tail or the rebate boat tail conversation. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is get a balance between trying to get it to go through the air smoother, but also make it stable and make it drive out the bullet properly. So that is at the barrel properly. That's the first bits of it, and that's why your bullets are largely shaped like they are. And then, as I've done in previous conversations, from a direct, square, flat butt on the bullet, actually it makes it easier to get out of a barrel with less turbulence. So as the bullet or the projectile breaks free of the barrel, just at that moment it gets to the tip of the barrel, you have gas that is squirting out in either direction, but also coming around. It has a loop round in front of it. If you have more getting out one side than the other side, if you have more time as it goes across that very, very crucial little moment, so a flat base gets instantly across it, a boat tail takes longer to get across it. It's actually being controlled by the gas coming out there for a longer period of time. We're talking micro milliseconds, but it still is an issue. So I've been that before, is that the better your crown is, the better they can deal with a boat tail bullet. But as you can imagine, you're really trying to shorten that down. Here's a bullet design from Outer Edge that has quite a wide base and quite a short base to the boat tail to it. And that's about other things as well, but that's trying to get the best of both worlds in the way of getting out of the muzzle. So that's the basics on a bullet. Come over to a boat tail. Well, what you're actually up to in a couple of places here is, if you look at a boat tail bullet, you've got a smaller drag on the back there because it comes down, it's smaller. It's not too long because it's got this rebate section in it, so it's not too long a boat tail in the way of your bullet hasn't been increased in its length for the boat tail side of things. And then you also have, if you look at, because you've got this step down at the back there, you mean that what actually breaks free of when it breaks free of the barrel, it then opens things up very quickly. So there's a nature of a rebate boat tail behaving at the muzzle like a flat base. It instantly comes out. Now there's another thing I mentioned about the drive side of things, is that when it's pushing, and this is a solid projectile, so it's less relevant with this projectile. You know, sit there, little boat tail, so it does that. Much more a thing about a jacketed bullet is that one of the things that they ran into is that and that's called obturating. I don't know how to pronounce the word properly, but it's actually talking about when a bullet is forced out by the gases or a projectile is forced out by the gases out of the barrel. That forcing actually causes a flat base bullet to expand the bullet a tiny bit, which means it seals to the bore better. It's like most things, if you try and push something from the middle, it's going to expand it out. And in some things, if you're trying to push a tennis ball through a tennis ball sized tube, if you just push it in the middle when it's got some friction, you might make it jam. You might find it's better to actually tap the thing out to get it out, let its own inertia, because if you push it, it jams. Well, it's a little bit the same thing with a projectile going through a flat base projectile. It won't jam, but it makes it seal to the bore better. And a boat tail does a little bit of the opposite. A boat tail, because it's still pushed from behind, but in actual fact, then there's this wedge on either side that the gas is getting to and pushing on the sides of the boat tail to push the bullet forward, is you'll find that in some cases, it's more notable. In properly set up, you really don't notice any differences. But in one of the things I think Tub go into and talk about their rebate boat tail, he used to use them, and this is talking about the Lepore Sina bullets, I think, from a long time ago. People used to change over to them when their barrels got a little bit worn. The barrels are getting a little bit bigger in the bore. They started to lose speed because the barrels are getting a bit worn. They go over to a rebate boat tail and the bullets would speed back up again. And that's because the rebate boat tail behaves a lot like a flat base bullet, and it actually is squished out to suit the bore, sort of compressed as being forced to fit the bore better and seal to the bore better. So that's one of the things about the rebate boat tail. The other thing, like I said, is about the escaping from the barrel. You have this sudden escape rather than a gentle escape of a boat tail. Plus, you're getting the efficiencies of the taper and the small base, so you're dragging less air. So it sounds all win-win-win. Isn't quite a win-win-win. There is a little trade-off when you're trying to stand them up in the air. There is a little trade-off when it comes to, there is still a scruffiness. There's a sharp edge that is causing a second piece of drag. Rather than a smooth relinquishing or tapering back in the boat tail, you've got that step there. There is some trade-off to go with that. In some cases, that may be a little bit of accuracy. In some cases, that's a little bit of efficiency. But there is a little bit of a trade-off on that side of things. There is a trade-off when it comes to people like this Outer Edge bullet here. There's a fair bit of the work and the shape of his butt to the bullet is about how it deals with the transonic zone and the shocks that are going on through that side of things. There is, like I said, it's not all positive. The testing I've seen people go down the road, or I shouldn't say seen, I've spoken to people and read articles about people going down the Rebate Boat Tail and finding there's some inconsistencies they ran into when they tried to push those boundaries. And there's a little bit of, they tend to be a little bit more suited to some situations, which is a case of they may work very well for you, but not so well for others. As for complication to make and all that sort of stuff, not really that much in the real pick of things. It comes down to your real consistencies and precisions and accuracies and that sort of stuff tend to live in the normal boat tail side of things. But if you're dealing with a problem like ball wear, if you're dealing with a problem in some cases, and I suppose this is another thing I should bring up, there was a transfer from old hunting style crown jobs or crown the front of your rifle to where they really struggled with the boat tail bullet, really were terrible with the boat tail bullet. So then they found that a flat base bullet would work in there nicely, and that's about this transition of the bullet getting out of the muzzle. In that case, some people, rather than recrowning rifles and things like that, went to a Rebate Boat Tail, and then they got the best of both worlds. Ultimately, my assessment of it from the testing I've done is if you do your boat tail just right and your rifle set up just right, there is no advantage to the Rebate Boat Tail. But listen, the world is still young. There may be something else coming on in the future. For me, that's what I've found, but that's the logic to go with the Rebate Boat Tail. They're both designed to get out of a muzzle a little better. They're designed to be efficient traveling through the air. They're designed to try and have your cake and eat it, try and have a slice from both cakes, however you want to put that. But there can be some little inconsistencies that come out of that process as well. This is another one, by the way. This is a Lapua, which I've not found great success with, but that is a peculiar sort of a Rebate Boat Tail, very small butt there, and there's no doubt some very smart logic with it, and no doubt work very well for some systems. I haven't found much of a joy there. I tend to find that for the ELR stuff, the smoother, the more simple and smooth that shape is, and that's including, not really into the ball rider side of things that much, not into the drive band side of things, or any imperfections or sharpness on the side of the projectile tends to really hurt in the ELR side of things. So extreme long range, where everything's slowed down to fluid dynamics, so it's traveling through the air where there's the friction. Listen, I won't get too complicated, but that's tends to where I go. But that is the design of, I suppose, the overview. That is the design of the Rebate Boat Tail. Hope that makes some sense. Thanks for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.